Safe Harbor, we're a small nonprofit organization. I have 6 professional staffs, including myself. Our mission, we provide a continuum of housing and supportive services for homeless, nearly homeless individuals and families in our communities. It was created in 1986, so we've been around for a while. They established a fundraising position, though, in 2008, and I joined Safe Harbor in 2012 as vice president for community relations and development, and then 4.5 years ago, either they were smart enough or dumb enough to offer me the president's position, and so that's the role I'm in now. Again, we're talking about building and sustaining our fundraising. So just to give you an idea of what we've done at Safe Harbor. When I joined in 11-12, their total fundraising was about $132,000 a year. Last year, we were up at $410,000. One of our main goals was to grow our endowment, and we've worked very hard at that. When I got there, it was $41,000, almost $42,000. Now well, as of last month, we were over $800,000. But if you look at the stock market, I'm not telling you where we are now. Our annual campaign giving has also increased from about almost $50,000 way back when to now just over $100,000 a year. And we've also received several large gifts, requests. Biggest check I've ever held in my hand. We had a request from a wonderful person who donated as part of her estate $436,125. And when the attorney called me up and said, here's your share, I think I about fell off my chair. So that was interesting. But I don't do it alone. I have my vice president for development is here, and my staff works very hard at making sure the organization runs very well. Let's stipulate right now, fundraising is not easy, especially because you have to ask people all the time for things. And eventually they see you coming and they're like looking the other way, or, oh, I have to take this phone call, or because they know you might be coming to ask me things. Real quick, how many of you in the room, fundraising is what you do, is your main job? So you're all in the same boat. All right. Foundational keys. These are some things you need to know. If you're going to be successful, these are just foundational, but they really are what you need to be doing. So the first is you want to create that culture of giving. As I said, when I got to Safe Harbor, they had somebody in a position for about 3.5, 4 years before I got there. They had just started. Even though they had been around since 1986, they were now realizing they needed to create that culture of giving. And so the first key, no matter what, is relationships. Your relationships are essential. Relationships in the community, relationships with other friends, service organizations who you work with, other organizations, colleges, universities, the business community. You have to create those relationships. People are more likely to help you with donations of whatever sort, or to help you when you have a need if they know you, they know your organization, and they feel like they can trust you, your staff, and your organization. It's harder to convince somebody to provide you with resources if they don't know who you are or they have no exposure to your organization. So one of the things that I did when I first got to Safe Harbor was I lived in Mechanicsburg, grew up on the West Shore, right outside of Harrisburg. I didn't know a whole lot about Carlisle. Carlisle is our main service area, though we serve all of Cumberland County. And so I set about learning all I could and learning the people in the community. One of the things the local Chamber of Commerce, the Carlisle Chamber of Commerce, has a monthly mixer, except during the pandemic. You'd be glad when you stop saying except during the pandemic. But so I think I missed like 4 of those in the last 10 years. That's where I met the people I needed to meet. I got to know them, and we created a relationship that had nothing to do with me asking them for something. I got to know who they were, and I got to understand how we could interact with them. So very important. Educating and communicating your donors, potential donors, other partner organizations, and the general public. You need to have people understand who you are, what you do, how you do it. One of the things that we started probably about 2014, 13, 14, was having an open house every year. then except during the pandemic, every year we would take an evening from about 4 to 7 and just we'd invite lots of community leaders, elected leaders, borough folks, community government folks, other folks from other organizations, but we also would then advertise it, sending the news release out to the media, putting it on social media. Come to this open house, see what we do, how we do it. Because again, lots of people, we had so many people, and we still have people say to us, well, I knew that building was there on the corner, but I had no clue what was in there. But when they came, they saw, we took them through, we showed them our rooms, we showed them our programs. Now I have a chance, because now they know what we do and how we do it, I have a chance to turn them into a supporter in some way. So really educating people is very key, explaining what you do and how you do it. Board members are important, advocates are important, volunteers are important. We get a lot of folks who call up and say, I want to help, I want to volunteer, what do you need? And we are able to find them something to do all the time, just about. Board members, Nicole was talking about board. Your board is essential no matter what. One of the things I learned very early on in my career was if you have a successful board when it comes to fundraising and comes to a nonprofit organization, you'd like to have it be in what I call thirds. You want a third who give. Those are the people who will write you a check whenever you need it. You have a third who get. They may not write you a check, but they know the people who will write you a check, and they will help you navigate and meet those people. I have a former board member who I jokingly kid him all the time. I think if he's given us more than $50 in the whole time that I've been with the organization, I would be surprised. But I will tell you, he has definitely introduced us to so many people in the community that he has provided us with probably well over $500,000 in donations from other folks over that 10-year period, because he introduced us to the people who had the funding. And then the last third is those who will give you of their time and talent. They may not have a whole lot of money. They may not know people with a whole lot of money, but you need a volunteer. You need somebody to be there for your event. You need somebody to help you with things. They are always there for you. So if you can get that kind of breakdown, that will be very helpful to making sure you have a successful organization. Lastly, you want to always make sure you are demonstrating to everyone, whether they're supporters or whether it's the general public, you're good stewards with the funding that you get. It's about transparency. Again, having an open house. We talk about what we do, how we do it, and what we do with the money. I tell every donor, I don't care if you give me $10, $100, $1,000, whatever you give, if you want to know where your money goes, come on down. I'll give you a tour. I'll show you everything we do. I'll tell you where your money goes. Because if you trust us with your money, you're more likely to give us more money or more donations of in-kind gifts or whatever you're giving us. You are likely to support us because you trust us, and that's very key. So what's your story? Okay, or in business, some people, what's your unique selling point? What is your story that you're telling those who want to support you? Ours is very simple. We provide shelter and supportive services for homeless individuals and families. That's the elevator speech. That's our story. Now, I will tell you how we do it. I will tell you why we do it. But if you understand our story, now that might be something you support. And that's what you want to know about your friends, your donors, your foundations, corporations. What do they support? Do they support you? Greg was talking about grants. Don't go chasing grants from an organization that they're not going to support. You look at what they say they support, and your program doesn't meet it. Don't waste your time. Okay? So what do they support? Do they support the kind of program you have? Why do they support? So many times we have donors who say to us, you are providing a significant need in the community, and you are helping the people who have that need, and I want to support you because I want to support those individuals. Why Simon Sinek? If you've ever heard that name, start with why. Why do they give you the support? Marianne and I joke all the time. We hear time and time again from supporters and others, you're doing God's work. And we are in a way, but that's why they want to support us. How do they support? Do they give you funding? Do they give you in-kind gifts? Do they volunteer? Do they help you meet other people who can help you? How do they support you? You want to understand that. And then when? We have some people who come Christmas time, come the holiday season, they're there for us and they are supporting us fantastically. We have other people who, simple, they've set something up on PayPal and we get $100 from them every month through PayPal every day or every month, same day, we get something from them. We have other people who they make sure that personal care items or nonprofit or non-perishable food items, clothing, whatever we need, they are either bringing us from them or they're directing other people to bring to us. So when do they support you? You need to understand what they're trying to do with that support. What do you need as an organization? If you're going to be out there asking people to help you, understand what you need. Okay, what's your continuum of giving? Do you need cash? Do you need in-kind gifts? Do you need grants? Do you need all three, like we do? If you do, you understand that, that's what you need. And by the way, if you guys have any questions as I'm going through this, please don't wait till the end. Just stick your hand up. I'll call on you. I'm happy to answer any questions. What do you need? When you understand what you need, then you can better communicate to all of those folks what you need, and hopefully you will get it. Where people say you get what you expect when you are clear about your expectations. You better know what you expect to get so that you can communicate that to your friends, your donors, and your supporters. So whether you're starting out or you're seeking to improve fundraising, there's a couple of things. First, if you don't already, and I would suspect that most of you already know, have your 501c3 designation as a nonprofit. Tell you a very quick story. We had another organization in our community who wanted to get into the affordable housing, offering affordable housing to individuals, and they were asking around, and they came to meet with us, and I asked them about their 501c3, and I said, oh yeah, we're in the process. We just started out. We have an attorney who's helping us pro bono, when we think we'll have it, in 6 months. And I looked at them and said, it takes about a year, maybe a little longer, all depends. And he kind of looked at me funny. I said, it does. It's the IRS. They're not here to help. They're here to take as much time as possible. So it's going to take a while, but it's essential. There are a number of foundations and corporations and funders and even donors who will not donate in any way, shape, or form unless you are a 501c3. I can tell you nearly all the grant applications that we fill out, that we apply for funds, if you're not a 501c3, they are not giving you a grant. It's absolutely not happening. So you need to have that. Audited financial statements and IRS 990. Here's a plug for SEK. They do a fantastic job for us. We don't need to have one annually. We do, and it comes in handy. Again, applying for grants. They want to see your audited financial statements. They want to see your 990. We have had situations where we have had donors ask, we want to see it. It's a matter, again, of transparency. And if they can see that information, they are more willing to trust you with their hard-earned dollars or their other donations that they're willing to give you. Create a position dedicated to fundraising if you can. I understand small nonprofits, you may not be able to, but if you can, and that's Safe Harbour learned that lesson. That's why, even though they have been around since 1986, and the gentleman who was president before me, he was there 23 and a half years, but the last 5.5 of those, he had me. He had a dedicated fundraising position for the last 8 of those years. What they learned is it takes money to make money. You have to commit those resources if you're going to be successful. You have to have somebody who's focusing on that if you're really going to take it up to the next level. Along with that, I'm talking about recruiting and retention. Hire well if you can. It's essential. I had a previous CEO way back in my career, and I don't even remember why we got on this topic one day, and he said to me, he said, look, here's what you do. You hire the smartest person you can for the job you have available. Hopefully they're smarter than you. Then you give them all the resources they need to do the job, and then you get the hell out of their way. And that's what I try to do, and that's what, because if they feel like they have the ability to go do what they need to do, they're going to go do it. They have ownership. So really, hire well. Marianne's from the Saints before. She makes me look smart every day for hiring her for this position because she's smarter than me. She does a hell of a job. She does a whole lot better than I did in that position. It works. You need to have somebody in that position who's going to do very, very well. You want to research where you can find your funding, okay? Pennsylvania Association of Nonprofits was cited here. There's also, if you're looking for grants, there's Grant Station. And if you're a member of the Pennsylvania Association of Nonprofits, you get a special, it's only like $95 a year. You get a special rate. I highly recommend Grant Station. We've found some grants that way. But you want to do the grant research about, again, who funds the type of organizations and the type of mission and the type of things that you do. It's very important. And then set realistic goals for your success. So again, I told you when I got to Safe Harbour, they had raised about $132,000 the year before. My first proposal of fundraising goals and objectives for the next year, I did a little research. I came in, sat down in a meeting with my president and with our board chair and with the person in charge of budgeting on the board. And they were like, well, so we need you to raise $250,000 next year. And hold on a second. You did 130 last year and you want me to go way above that? Look, let's look at the numbers. Last year, giving increased 7% nationwide. You have a number of donors who've given this much money. Here's a realistic goal for next year. And after I gave them the data, they came back down to reality and we set a realistic goal. And we've set realistic goals every year since then. It's wonderful to stretch and to try to surpass that goal and surpass it by a wide margin if you can, but also it doesn't do you any good to just throw out a number with no realistic foundation to it. And then you have to explain to your board why you came up way short. That's not going to help you moving forward. So set realistic goals. If you're looking to improve, the first thing, and you've heard this morning in other ways, perform a critical review of what you're doing now. Are we reaching the right people? Are we asking the right people? Are we asking the right things? Did we go back and look and see what do we want? What do we need? What are our expectations? Have we communicated those? Really take a hard look at yourself. And sometimes it will do you good to maybe find 3 or 4 people who are in the fundraising field who you trust and respect and ask them to work with you to do that kind of critical review. My staff has heard me say this way too many times. I am never the smartest guy in the room, but I get lots of smart people in the room with me and we're going to figure it out. So if you can find lots of smart people who are willing to help you figure it out, they can help you do that critical review and understand what's your SWOT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. Understand those. If you understand those 4 things and have a plan for addressing all of those, you will be better off. Ask the tough questions. Always ask the tough questions, because if you don't ask them, the board's going to ask them. And if the board asks them now, you better have the good answers. Also, your donors, your supporters, the community will ask the tough questions. They're not going to be afraid. So if you ask them first and you have the answers, it's easy for you then to answer those questions when people ask you. If you've read the book, Good to Great, if you understand Jim Collins, do you have the right people on the bus? Do you have the right people in the seat on the bus? Give a good hard look. Sometimes you don't, and sometimes you have to have that conversation. It's never easy, but you have to have it. Again, commit the resources necessary for success. It doesn't do you any good to say this is what we're going to do, but you don't commit the resources to making it happen. You have to have the resources. You have to spend money to make money, and you have to make sure you're doing the things you need to do to be successful. And again, set realistic goals. If you want to sustain it, you want to continue to cultivate, communicate, and care for your current donors and supporters. It's easier to keep donors than get new donors. It's easier to keep donors than to go get new donors. You spend less time, you spend less money, you spend less effort, and hopefully you can convince them to give more funding down the line. So, but don't just ask all the time, okay? You want to have a need, but you don't want to seem to be needy. If they think every time they see you, you're going to be asking them for something, that's going to create, again, an atmosphere where they see you coming and they're turning the other way. One of the things we did at Safe Harbour is we started an event that we thanked our significant donors. So we have a giving level called Harbor Masters. Anybody who gives $500 or more in a fiscal year to Safe Harbour is designated as a Harbor Master. So we started having this reception in October where it was just a reception to thank those people who reached the harbor master level for their support of Safe Harbor during the past year. And we would invite them, and we'd have it at a very nice place. We would beer, wine, snacks, significant hors d'oeuvres. But I would tell folks, we're not going to ask you for anything. I would call them and say, please come. I want you to be there. We're just thanking you. I promise no one is asking you for anything. It's just a way to say thank you. And that was important because the first thing you think of when they get an invitation is, okay, what are you asking me for? Do I bring my checkbook? Do I bring my credit card? What do you want now? It was just simply a way of saying thank you. And we stick to that. And it's worked out very well for us. You want to develop strategies and reach out to your potential donors and supporters. Again, make sure you're using your social media well. Make sure you're communicating to them in the way they want to be communicated to. Understand how they want to be communicated with. Some donors want email. Some donors don't want emails and won't give you their email. Some donors will through social media. Some people will just want something in the mail. Understand your donors and develop those strategies and how to reach out to them in the way that they want to be communicated with. We continue to seek your new sources of donations and revenue. You want to look at grants, continually research. What are your grants? Look at your events. What events are you doing now? What events can you do in the future? What will attract them? And always look to other funders, foundations, corporations. Watch what other organizations similar to you are doing. We have such a wonderful nonprofit community in Cumberland County, and especially in Carlisle, especially those. There are 5 organizations in our community that we have what I call complementary missions. So 4 of them, we provide housing in some sort of way for individuals. And then the 5th is the food pantry, local food pantry. We all work very well together. We all help each other. We all make sure everybody's doing well. There are some times when I see some of those folks more in a week than I will see my family. But we all work very well together. But we also watch and see what they're doing to see what they are doing that looks successful that we can adapt for our organization. In a previous life, I spent about 20 years in higher education. There was an organization in higher ed called the Council for the Advancement and Support of Education, or CASE was its acronym. We said it stood for Copy and Steal Everything. Look at what everybody else is doing. Use it for your organization. It can be successful for you too. Just have to adapt it to what your organization is doing. So, revenue sources and options. What are your revenue sources? What can you do? So, the continuing giving. Again, the first thing is everybody here probably we need cash money. We need cash. Though I've gotten to the point where I don't default to that anymore. We had a couple, husband and wife, who were new to the area, but they knew one of our board members, and so they recommended him to me. And they came in, I gave them a tour, showed them what we do, showed them how we do it. And we finished the tour. We're standing in our conference room talking, and the wife looked at me and she said, "Do you take donations?" And I started rattling off. Well, sure. We need linens. We need towels. We need personal care items. And she stopped me. She goes, "Do you take cash?" I'm like, "Well, yes, we do." But I didn't default to that because I don't naturally assume that everybody's just going to reach into their wallet and hand me cash. But cash obviously is king. So understand how much you need, and then communicate that in a way that people are willing to give it to you. Events. We are very good at events right now. We have 4 or 5, depending on whether it's a pandemic, events. We have a gala. We have, get this, the skeet shoot. So we do that. That's coming up in June. And that was brought to us by 2 of our former board members. These gentlemen were members of the local fishing game, and they said to me, "We should do this." I was like, "Well, that's great. I don't know much about it." So they took me out to lunch, they took me out to the range, they showed me how to skeet shoot. I think I hit 1 of 25. which is probably more than I should have hit. As far as we can tell, we're one of only 2 or 3 organizations in our community that actually do that as a fundraiser. But it raises a significant amount of money for us. We have the obligatory golf tournament. That also, we were able to upgrade that, if you will. A local family, it's called the Shoemaker Classic. It's been around for over 25 years now. It was originally raising money for the local hospital, and it was nonprofit. And then it was raising money for another organization, and this other organization said it's too big. We can't handle it anymore. And so June Shoemaker, who is the matriarch of the family, was a big supporter of Safe Harbour and still supports us. And she said, well, they're not going to do it anymore. I said, well, we'll do it. She said, okay. So, and that came with about 10 sponsors built in, including the primary sponsor. So immediately we jumped in revenue by about $10,000 just by taking over that named tournament. And then lastly, we have done a beer and wine tasting that we call Sip and Savor. And we haven't done it the last 2 years, but we're hoping to get back to that as well. So we have a number of events, but the key to events, I will tell you this, you want to be very careful to make sure that cost versus the revenue. Doesn't do you a whole lot good if you spend $10,000 on an event and you only raise 12. I mean, that's 2,000. That's not really good time, a good use of your time, energy, and revenue. So we did that early on when I got there because there were a couple of other events that they did that it wasn't worth our time. We were only raising $2,500 and we were spending, probably about $1,500 and a whole lot of time and energy because we wanted to do it well. Always make sure you have a good balance of cost and revenue for the events. Grants. Greg talked about grants, but that's the other thing. Time and effort in terms of the amount of funding. We have looked at some grants, and for some of you, this may be a significant grant where you look at the organization and say, well, we're going to give grants of $500 to $1,500. And I know some of your organizations, and way back when, that probably would have been a significant amount for us. But we all know grant applications are a bear to fill out. They want so much information, and you're wondering why. Okay, but you fill it out. Well, if it takes you 6 hours to fill out a grant application for $500, is it worth it? Is it worth your time? So do that analysis. Is it worth my time and energy to spend all this time filling out this grant application and I'm getting $500 when maybe I can be doing a grant application that's going to bring in $2,500 or $5,000? So understand that. Also, one of the things that I have educated my board to understand, we all know grants aren't necessarily guaranteed annually. You might apply this year and get it. You might apply next year and the grantor has changed or they decide to spend the money elsewhere. So you want to make sure you understand, keep looking for those grants, keep trying to find the grants, but understand it's not guaranteed that next year you're going to get that same amount or even any from that grantor. So grants are something you have to keep cultivating. Major gifts. So major gifts are bequests. You're in somebody's will. They are charitable gift annuities. We started this about 4 years ago to get into this. It's tough for a small nonprofit, especially if you're even smaller than we are. You want to either maybe get somebody on your board who does these things who will help you out, or find somebody in the community who's willing to help you out. It's a lot of work, especially charitable gift annuities, because now you need an attorney and it's an agreement. And if you don't know what that is, somebody gives you something and you pay them until they pass. And then when they pass, you get whatever's left. These things all have to be in writing, legalities, everything. So it's not for the faint of heart, but it can be a significant amount of funding. You just need to understand the effort that needs to go into it. We've been very blessed. We've gotten 3 or 4 large bequests over the last 5 years. Bequests are also a difficult conversation sometimes for individuals because some people think it's kind of macabre to be sitting down with somebody and saying, so I'd like you to put me in our organization in your will, so when you die, then we're going to get a lot of money. you have to prepare yourself for that conversation. It's a conversation that needs to be had. And I will tell you, there are other nonprofit organizations who are having that conversation with your donors. So you want to also figure out how to have that conversation with your donors. It's part of life. It's part of fundraising. You need to have that conversation. Lastly, volunteers and time and talent. So we have grants, or actually they are state grants, federal grants for programs, emergency solution grant, community development block grant, those kind of governmental programs. We are required to match dollar for dollar, either with in-kind donations or with volunteer hours. So those are very important. We have to document those. We have to value those things. You want to have those volunteers, but you also want to have their time and talent. Their time and talent can lead to other things. For example, the board members who came to me and said, hey, we need to do a skeet shoot fundraiser. I would have never, ever in my life thought about a skeet shoot fundraiser until our board members said, hey, come. So that's the other thing. I don't know about any of you, but our board's all volunteer. I'm sure everybody else's board is volunteer. When you're working with your board, understand, and I've said this to my board members frequently, I just ask for your involvement at whatever level you're able to give to me, because for what I'm paying you, I don't expect a lot. I expect you to give what you can give, but I also understand I'm not paying you much. So the board members are important in that time and talent as well. I'm happy to answer any questions now. My contact information is there. I'm happy to answer any questions for you. You get back to the office and you're like, oh, shoot me an email, give me a call. I'm happy to. Fundraising is not necessarily rocket science, but it is a lot of work. And you have to work at it every day. And you have to have the resources to make it happen.